When you think of your mother, you think of someone who wants to protect you and care for you. Our Lady doesn't want you to have a difficult time doing anything, and she wants you to tell her what you need help with. Just a simple prayer is all that it takes. It'll work miracles. My name is Collette Sherlock. I am 19 years old and I study theology and English in St Patrick's Pontifical University and Maynooth University in Maynooth in Ireland. I am from a small village in Laois called Emo, and I have two brothers and we live on a farm. I grew up going to Mass with my dad, and it was a weekly Sunday thing, and we used to say the Rosary every Saturday and Friday, and whenever we got the chance. And then we would go to Mass every Friday as well. And I remember growing up and not liking going at all. And then I just went, I didn't kick up a fuss. And then when I became around 12 and I was making my confirmation, I started to enjoy going to Mass and I enjoyed saying the Rosary afterwards. And I'd nearly be disappointed if we didn't get to go. When I was about 7, I became really sick with my ears. I was in and out of hospital every week with ear infections, and it turns out it wasn't as simple as they thought it was. I had a big cyst that grew all around my ear, and then every 12 to 18 months it would end up in a big surgery. It was really difficult because I was only a child, and I remember I wasn't able to have birthday parties. I wasn't allowed to go to birthday parties. I missed so much of school. I missed my friends. I was just at home all day because I wasn't able to do any more. And then the cyst grew into my facial nerve in my face, and then half of my face just stopped working. And then all the prayers, they worked. I had my grandparents praying for me, my parents, Mass cards from Knock, people everywhere praying. And then eventually it got better until I was about 16. I was really, really insecure to the point where if it wasn't for the masks during COVID, I wouldn't have left the house. I didn't want to go to school, I didn't want to see anyone, and even seeing my family was a stretch. And so then during COVID, on my 16th birthday, I was admitted into hospital for a week to do tests to decide whether it was cancer or whether it was the cyst again. Thank God it wasn't cancer. I remember I had the operation, it was the biggest I had yet, and I got over it fine, everything went well and I was better after. And I remember being in Medjugorje the year after, and a friend of ours, he knows a man that did retreats up in Killadoon in County Mayo, and he comes over to me and he said, I was talking to Jim and he has an image of you in Killadoon this summer for a retreat. And I said, okay, I'll go if it suits, if I'm not working, and I'll see what I can do. But I was kind of neutral about going. I didn't really mind whether I got to go or I didn't. So lo and behold, July came and I got the exact days off work. I didn't even have to look for it, and everything just worked out perfectly. And I remember we were sitting down having tea after Mass one day, and Jim just said, who here has an ear problem? And no one else mentioned themselves. So I said, it has to be me. And then he looks at me and goes, you're fixed. You're healed, that's it, don't worry about it anymore. And I haven't had any ear problems since. It's incredible how it just went away. And I've never not had a problem with it since for the past 12 years or so, so it's just really good. Our Lady, I remember when I was asked to go to Lourdes, she was the sole reason that got me there. I remember a teacher that I knew, he is very involved with the parish, and then he said, before COVID, we bring students from your school and we bring students from my school, and I'd love if you could come. I will try my best when the time comes around to bring you out. And that was fine, I was happy enough to be going. And then COVID ended, and turns out that it didn't suit for me to go anymore because he still had people from the previous years before COVID who still wanted to go and there wasn't enough room. And that was okay. that was fine. And then after that, I remember that I didn't want to not go. And I wasn't settled with not going. So I prayed and I prayed and I prayed again to Our Lady. I saying rosaries all the time and memoraries until I got to the stage where I felt comfortable enough that if I was brought out to Lourdes, that was it, and I was supposed to be there. And then I left it for a while, and then I came back from school one day and that teacher had rang my mum and said that there was this free space. So I was absolutely delighted. I couldn't wait to get out, and I knew there was no question about it that it was just that answered prayer. And I remember, because of Our Lady and because I got out there, I had the biggest encounter with Jesus I ever had. And I remember I was volunteering to push wheelchairs of elderly people and sick people out there to bring them around so they could go on a pilgrimage too. And I had my lady in her wheelchair and we were going up to adoration in a hospital chapel, and we went up the lift and we weren't even in the chapel, and I knew that something good was going to happen in there. I just had the feeling. And so I went down and I sat in the pew and I was inconsolable for a few minutes. And it was just so lovely because during the week I had prayed when I was out there, look, there's no coincidence about me being here. I think I'm supposed to volunteer, I'm supposed to help people, I'm supposed to do things for the good of others. So just, Jesus, please answer my prayer and let me know if this is meant for me. So when I went into the chapel and I sat down, the windows were open and there was warm air flooding in, and there was the choir playing in the big chapel outside, and it was just so perfect because there was no question about the presence of Jesus and Our Lady being there. And so that was the biggest thing that I think ever happened. And it's nice to know that if I'm ever in Mass and I'm not in the best, spiritual place ever, that I can still remember that that is the same Jesus that I met that day. And it is the same Our Lady that I met that day. I remember when I was small, I actually didn't own my own rosary beads, but it was about the time where I actually started to enjoy praying and enjoy going to Mass. But when I was at my mum's, I didn't have a rosary beads for myself, besides the one that was hanging on the candle up by the picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And then I remember just feeling like I had to pray for some odd reason, because I'd never felt like that before. So I ran into the kitchen, I stole the rosary beads and ran back into my room and prayed the rosary on my own. I had a small little blue book with the mysteries of the rosary and everything that I was supposed to meditate on. My granddad gave that to me, and it was really useful for when I did want to pray. And I remember that it was about the time that I made my confirmation, and I had a great Mass, and I understood what was going on. And I understood that, this is the Holy Spirit with me now. And all of that prayer, it gave me so many blessings. And I think that that was the thing that set me up for where I am now. If that had not happened, I don't know where I would really be with my faith. And I don't know if I would have said yes to going to Medjugorje for the first time. But it did me so many graces, and I'm still very grateful for it. When I was in Medjugorje in 2022, I remember having prayed so hard in Medjugorje at that time. I think the prayers that I prayed there to Our Lady did me so many graces the following year when I sat my Leaving Cert. I wanted to be a dietitian in the beginning, and then because of my subject choices and some of my grades, that didn't work out. But it did me so many favours in the end, because I ended up finding about my theology course here. And then I decided that I wanted to be a teacher. So it all worked out perfectly because of the prayer and because of everything. And I didn't think that I'd be able to, not that I wouldn't be able to get into the course, but I didn't think I had what it takes to actually do it. But then when I got accepted into the course, I knew that it was Our Lady doing me more, good things. And all of the praying that had been done for me from so many people to get me here had been, they had worked. And then not only had I gone into the course, I met so many Catholic friends. It's great to have them because they keep you on your toes. And if you ask them something like, what do you think of this? Is this a sin? They'll give you an honest answer. Whereas as great as all your friends are, not all of them can do that for you. And then on top of that, I ended up becoming a committee member, which is a further answer to the prayer that I had prayed in Lourdes, where I asked Our Lady and Jesus to tell me if I was supposed to help people and volunteer in a way that could bring them closer to Jesus. I grew my relationship to Our Lady when I started praying the Rosary more and more often. And the more I prayed, because she brings you to Jesus, the more I wanted to go to Mass. And then the more I went to Mass, the more I discovered who Jesus is and what sort of a person he is and how I can become more like him by doing the sort of things that he would do. So I remember even as a child, I would go to Mass and I'd listen to the readings and the Gospels, and then at some point during the week, a situation would happen where I could apply the message of the readings or the Gospel to the situation, and then I could think, it's a thing that Jesus would approve of me doing, and I reacted in a way that was biblical, and it didn't lead me into a sin or saying something that I shouldn't have said or gossip or anything bad. So then the more and more that I prayed to both Jesus and Our Lady, the more that I found more peace, the more I found more comfort, the better I was able to handle things, the better I treated people, and just my overall life became better. Every time that I got to go to Medjugorje was a new blessing, and every time I came home with more graces. And I remember every time I have been there, I've had some big wow kind of moments, and it's always been so good because I come home refreshed and I come home spiritually ready to tackle whatever's to come. I remember the first time I went and I just felt very peaceful, very, very peaceful. After all the prayer, and I came home a new woman altogether. And then the second time I went out, I climbed across the mountain, and we were told to bring up a rock at the bottom of the mountain, and then as we go up and as we pray the chaplet, you have to put everything that you want to leave at the top of the mountain, any troubles or anything that you have, put them into the rock and leave them there. And I was thinking about a couple of things that I wanted to leave up at the top of the mountain, and by the time we had got to about, the 10th station, I don't know what it was, but I felt like I was just going to cry. And that's generally not quite like me. Unless something happens, I won't just sob for no reason. And the closer we got to the top, I just had to let loose and cry. And so that was one of the other nicest things that ever happened up on a pilgrimage. It's nice to have a bit of release and to feel less stressed, and it's nearly like an act of surrender, because you have your little rock and you have your little worries, and then you say, okay, Jesus, here you go, and that's it. And then you come down feeling a lot lighter, like you left your cross at the top of that mountain, and everything feels much better at the end. Every time I've been, I've had something to come home with, and something that makes me think, oh wow, sometimes I forget that it's actually this real, and how many times I can actually see Jesus working through me, and how many times I can see Our Lady working through me, and also through the lives of others as well. When you go on a pilgrimage and you meet so many new people, and then you learn what their stories are, and sometimes you look at their problems and then you think, I'd happily take my own, because their problems seem much more bigger than yours, and then you're thinking, like if Our Lady can change them, she can change me. And if Our Lady and Jesus, if they can do anything in their lives, they can surely do it to mine as well. So then after you see things like that, it nearly becomes just an act of trust to give everything to them and say, look, do what you want. I'm happy enough. Your will, not mine. That's a big thing that we have to remember, and that it's really hard to kind of pray and think, because we want to have control of our own lives. We want to have control of what we do. We think that we are the best at deciding on what's best for us. But that's actually not true, because God, He made us with a plan. He made us and decided what we're to do and what our mission is. So we cannot decide that on our own. So that's why when people say they get lost in things and then they lose themselves, it's because they lost the will of God in their lives. When I am outside of a pilgrimage, I have to try and make every day better and try and keep up with my faith life. And it's a hard thing to do sometimes, because not every day is good. But I find that when I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is reach for my phone, I have to say, no, let's just say a prayer first. Even if it's as much as a Hail Mary or a Memorare, I find that just taking that time out to say, you know, thank you for waking me up. Thank you for all the things that I have to do today. And thank you for all the good things that I have. It sets my mind out to have a good day and think in a better mindset. But then I also know that Our Lady is there watching over me. My guardian angel is there watching over me, and just as much as Jesus. And then, yeah, it sets me out to have a good day. And then I find that if I start my day with a prayer, it's easier to pray with throughout the day. I sometimes like to pray when I'm doing things, just to keep my mind occupied. It's just nice to feel peace throughout the day. And I also find that I'm in work. I work as a waitress, and that can get very, very busy and very, very hectic and very, very stressful because there's so many people demanding so much of you at once. I find that if I pray, everything actually goes smoothly. Even yesterday, I was in work and we had over 100 people in a not so big room, and then everything went smooth because I had prayed. And I just know that if I didn't pray beforehand, it would have caused a lot of havoc for us all. And we even got out of work at time, which is rare, but it happened yesterday. Yeah, so it's just things like that. And then if I feel myself getting lazy with my college work and my assignments, I think, okay, look, I actually have to do this. And then I'll say a prayer, and then I find that it's easier to sit up and actually go to the library and get it done. And on top of that, we're so lucky here in Maynooth because we have such a good choice of Mass times and where we'd like to go to Mass. I think there's about 3 Masses every day. So really, when I think about that, there's no excuse for me not to go. So then just a Mass and a Rosary or even a simple prayer every day can really do a lot. My favourite prayer is the Memorare, mainly because that is the prayer that I prayed most when I was trying to go to Lourdes at that time, when I really, really felt called. And sometimes if I'm doing something and I don't have the time to concentrate on a rosary, I'll even just say 5 Memoraries, and then I feel happy enough until later and I can pray more then again. But yeah, it's just that one prayer that I feel like if I'm kind of daydreaming or something, that if I pray it, I'm kind of back in action and my head is in the right spot again to pray properly. She literally is your mother, and when you think of your mother, you think of someone who wants to protect you and care for you and mind you and do things for you. Our Lady doesn't want you to have a difficult time doing anything. So I think that it's good to remember that, and she wants you to tell her what you need help with, and she will do it no problem. So I think that kind of adds up to just not forgetting that she wants to help. And the same with Jesus, just a simple prayer is all that it takes if you're not at the stage of saying a full rosary yet. And then if you just let them into your lives, it'll work miracles. And then you'll see for yourself, and you will know whether something is a coincidence or not. But generally it's not, because if you just let them in, you'll see everything that they can do. And I think especially for our generation, there's not many people nowadays who actually give a lot of time to Christ or give a lot of time to Our Lady. So, we need to kind of shift our focus back to that and stop living for the world rather than Jesus and Our Lady. But there is hope. You look at the news and then you see all of these horrible things that are happening, like wars and everything. But, the power of the Rosary and the Mass, we are told, can stop wars. So if we just shift our minds and think more about our prayer life and put more effort into it, it's just unbelievable the things that can happen.
My name is Michael O'Neill and I'm the Miracle Hunter, and today we're talking about some of the miraculous images of the Virgin Mary from around the world. One of my favorite stories of the Virgin Mary, and it's kind of on the level of Our Lady of Guadalupe, who left that lasting image for St. Juan Diego. There's another image like this, and it's actually found in Colombia. There was a woman named Maria Mueces de Quiñones, and in the year 1754, she was walking amongst Las Lajas, or the flagstones, when she was caught in the snow in a rainstorm. She was running to a cave to seek protection from that rainstorm, and her daughter got there first. Now, her daughter was very sickly. She was deaf and mute, and all of a sudden she started exclaiming, "I hear the Virgin Mary." And sure enough, they ran away from that spot in fear. They ran to Itopiales, where they were from, and the townspeople came back with them. And when they did come back, they discovered an image of the Virgin Mary that was emblazoned on the cave wall where they were about to go in. And this is an image of the Virgin Mary. It looks like it's in Spanish style from the 17th century, and it has the mother and child with St. Dominic and St. Francis depicted in the same spot. And this may look like a painting at first, but scientists have actually cored into that image and found that the color goes 7 feet deep. And so no known scientific process can produce color in rock. This is considered a miracle locally and a miracle for the world that's been approved by the Catholic Church. And that was Our Lady of Las Lajas in Quidara Canyon in the year 1754.